on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people that conferred the honor on me by inviting me to this conference. As you well know, Senegal has always been in the vanguard when it has come to defending noble causes, and particularly the cause of Palestine. It was in 1977, if I'm not mistaken, that Senegal gave an international instrument of sovereignty, this I refer to a diplomatic passport, to Mr. Yasser Arafat and to the people who were accompanying him so that he could visit the various international fora to defend the Palestinian cause. And at the time, up until then, no single Arab state had dared to confer this international instrument of sovereignty on Mr. Arafat, a diplomatic passport. And I'd like to say that this is a cause that is multidimensional in nature. It's not just religious or cultural nor legal. The proof of that is that all of us are seated around here with the same objective, defense of this noble cause. So if you want to restrict, well, if you want to just perceive this cause as a religious one alone or even a cultural one alone, then we would be distorting. We wouldn't have a full understanding of the true roots of this Palestinian cause. There's a Quranic verse.
ليلا من المسجد الأقصى من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله. Il a dit que louange à Dieu.
This verse states, praise be to the Almighty whose trip has enabled one to go to Jerusalem, the mosque in the far distance of Jerusalem, which is blessed above all. This is simply to say that this has a special meaning in the religious realm, be it Judaic or Christian even. It's just this is an international city belonging symbolically not just to the Jews but also to the Zionists, because the Ashkenazi who came from Eastern Central Europe, or even the Sephardi who came from the Mediterranean basin, or even the Mediterranean who came from Central Asia, it's not their city alone. In fact, what pushed them all to come back to Palestine was this idea of the Zionists that the Arabs should be deleted, removed from Palestine. So what I'm driving at is that the holy places, the status of Jerusalem encompasses your question, sir. Yes, I just wanted to say, I'm just trying to clarify certain aspects of the issue. If you allow me, fine. If you don't, I'll stop here. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, but the presenters have made their presentations, and it's on the basis of the presentations that we are required to make a short comment or ask a question or whatever has been clear. Now, I see we have got more presenters on the floor than up here. Next time, we would most probably have identified potential presenters amongst you. Please just be short to the point. Ask the question. I don't want to limit people to half a minute, but that's what I'm thinking about a question would be. Diallo.
Okay. Thank you. Galay Diao. I'm a member of the Senegal-Palestine Solidarity Association. And I don't have any question, but I got here a message from the coordinator who is missing. He wants me to give you the message. So if you allow me to do it, I will do it. But
if it is 1 minute, I would allow.
Okay, let's try to be short. So, but the message is in French. I'm sorry for this. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished ambassadors, distinguished guests, in my name and capacity, all protocols observed, the Senegal Palestine Association was set up following on the bombings that occurred on the 8th of July 2014 by the Israeli army against the civil population of Gaza, as was stated by Mr. Chambers when he was reading the declaration from the UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. 74% of the dwellings in Gaza were destroyed, and they have not been rebuilt as of this day. Our collective brings together several religious associations, citizens' movements, political parties, and independent individuals who have been militating for several years now in defense of the cause of Palestine. We are all united and continue to bring our support, express our solidarity and our active solidarity to the resistance of Palestine. Our collective approach is based on the principle that the Palestinian cause is a universal one of concern to all peoples of the world, to all Democrats, be they men or women, all people who defend justice, international law, democracy, humanism, peace, the rights of people to dispose of their own fate, as well as the principles of religion, all religions. We support the Palestinian cause as a just cause, and no distinctions made of the various components involved. And so we wish to express the fundamental interests of the people of Senegal and the peoples of the world to support this cause, because as the valiant fighter Nelson Mandela said,
so I will end up here by this recommendation, the solutions. We have
can I suggest
4 points. Just
may I suggest? Presentations and statements were delivered yesterday. If you could present that to the Secretariat, we will still be able to put it on record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
S. Diop. I might not have had the full name, but it was S. Diop.
Say Job.
Sheikh Jibril.
Oh, that must be it. Sorry.
Sheikh Jibril, hein?
Oui.
نعم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بعد تحيات خالصة نحو أصحاب السيادة والمعالي المنظمة لمثل هذا.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the organizers of this very important session it is the following, and it says this. Let me tell you what the first question is. First of all, I wonder whether one can assume that the acts of suicide committed by the Palestinians, can one therefore consider that these are acts which in fact achieve more than what the negotiations were able to achieve? I mean by that, did these acts of violence perpetrated by the Palestinian forces, I'm asking, did these acts attain any more results than had been achieved by the negotiations? My second question is as follows. The suicidal actions of the resistance, and really I speak with sadness because this sparks off Israeli reactions which encompass arresting children, destroying homes, building walls. Would this mean for both parties, and most especially for the civilian populations on both sides, that the time has come for them to sit around one table so that they all may talk to each other? Because they are understanding that violence leads nowhere. Why wouldn't they opt for violence, as did Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and many others like Gandhi. Now this brings to my third and last question, if I may. The non-governmental organizations, international non-governmental organizations, should now perhaps begin dialogue sessions, negotiation sessions, bringing together the stakeholders in order to bring violence to an end, to halt these arbitrary arrests and the destruction of houses. It's necessary, is it not? May God's peace accompany you.
Thank you. Madam Arafah, and then the gentleman up there.
Thank you. A very short comment on the last intervention. I think it's very problematic to call for all these shared projects between Palestinians and Israelis, because it's all based on the false premise of symmetry between the occupier and the occupied, or the claim that both are responsible for the so-called conflict. These projects at the end do not challenge the status quo and do not address the root cause of the problem, which is the Israeli occupation. So instead of calling for projects of coexistence, we should instead work to have projects of co-resistance if our struggle is to fight a system of injustice and discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Just introduce yourself. Yes?
Bismillah. Naam, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
May the peace of the Prophet and his companions be upon you all. Let me begin by stating just how delighted I am to be participating in a meeting such as this. I have this wonderful opportunity to share in this dialogue organized by people who are trying to find a solution to the Palestinian question. Yes, this is something I admire, but I must say I deplore the absence, the total absence of representatives from Arab states. Where are the Arab ambassadors? Where are representatives of Arabic organizations? Where are the institutions? I see no ambassador. Where are they? I only see the representative of Syria and Mauritania.
عفوا خليلا أكمل يعني
My apologies, but my personal approach to this, having studied Arabic civilization, Arab literature, I note how admirable, how courageous, and how much nobility of spirit existed over history. But as I speak, I don't see even a minute percentage of that from the way our ancestors behave. I don't see it in the present day. You Arabs, look at your ancestors, worthy, glorious. All of us are trying to assist the people of Palestine on a daily basis. We are trying to take things forward until a solution can be found to this situation. Why? How come we don't understand that today there can be people who live on this planet who are so violent, who behave in such a violent way? Progress, development, advancement in Palestine can only occur if we diminish this excessive cruelty.
Please.
Ma question ou bien نعم أفهم السؤال هو ما
Yes, I'm just coming to my question. This is my question. Is it possible to set a deadline, to have a schedule? Because this has been an issue that has been going on for half a century, over 5 decades. Is there a timeline for us to come to an end to this issue? May the peace of God be with you. I'm not against Arabs. On the contrary, I'm on your side. I promise. I swear in the name of God, I'm on your side. Don't think I'm an enemy. Thank you.
Thank you. The last question or comment? The floor is yours, sir. Yes.
This works? Yes. Salam, my name is Nathan. I am the artistic director of Music Cultural Diplomacy based here in Dakar. I'm just an artist here for personal interest. This is a question directly for the presenters. I won't be complicated or long-winded. One thing I fail to understand is that the discourse here turns a blind eye to the fact of a document called the Greater Israel Project, which is essentially a manifesto of the explicit intentions of Zionism and the State of Israel. And it's in writing. It's written by Oded Yanan in the 80s, I believe, 70s. And this outlines a plan from the Nile to the Euphrates, which will all be the destiny of Israel's territory. So, and in fact, it calls for to destabilize these territories by balkanization, sectarian violence, covert sectarian violence. And given that the motto of the Mossad is by deception thou shalt do war, this is exactly what we see playing out with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, etc. It doesn't take much research to understand that ISIS stands for Israel's Secret Intelligence Service. So, sorry to be rather controversial, but I think there's an underlying reality which we are turning a blind eye to, and it's nice to talk about Jerusalem, but actually they're hell-bent on a much greater territory than this particular city. I understand that the city is a microcosm, but there's a much deeper explicit issue which this document, the Greater Israel Project, has been playing out to a T, like a script. What's happening with ISIS is not random. It's exactly serving the interests of the Greater Israel Project. Why is this not being addressed here today? Thank you.
Maybe you came in late, but the issue was addressed sometime at the beginning of our meeting. Yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Je dis bonjour à tout le monde.
I'd like to say good afternoon to everybody. I really must say how moved I am. I'm moved by this initiative, this attempt to give the Palestinian people back their true status. We wish to see them recover their inalienable rights that have been lost since 1948. There are two things I wish to say here. What I want to begin by saying is that the Western powers, I'm talking about the economic powers, are not here. I don't see them. I wonder where they are. Surely they should be here. They should be here to address this problem of Palestine. Why do I ask this? Each time we see a country in danger, they rush in to serve as a deterrent. We've seen this in Africa, in many countries, especially when the issues of democracy are raised. You see them rushing in to try and reestablish order. Whereas since 1948, what do we see? Palestinians have been suffering, and up until now, they haven't been able to find a solution. Why is this? I have two questions. I'd like to know. I'm a young student. I'd like to understand how the Israelis, the Jews, are living in Jerusalem? How do they live with each other? The man in the street, how do they live with each other? And my second question is why is it that organizations, activist organizations, are not bringing the international youth together to counter Israel? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Being no time to field more questions, and I think we have fielded quite a number of questions that our presenters need to respond to. I would now give the floor to our distinguished presenters and experts to respond to the questions that were just raised, starting from Madam Sise, and then we come along this way.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Chair, thank you. Dear lady, you had put a question to me. You'd asked about the usefulness of joint projects. I must say that such projects are not mutually exclusive, and historians who have worked on this project, I'm talking about Israeli historians, had never been imbued with anti-Palestinian sentiment. On the contrary. So that being the case, why would we deprive ourselves of such a wealth of human knowledge and such a wealth of support for a cause which is one in which I believe with all my heart? I see no incompatibility between these two approaches. Professor Job, you'd asked about why it was 48, the date chosen, and why hadn't we looked at everything that preceded that date? Well, you're a historian. I certainly have nothing to teach you, but not every choice necessarily is an arbitrary one. This is a choice that was motivated by the fact that the two national histories, the two national stories, the Palestinian story, the Israeli story, emerged at that point in time. And this is why 1948 was selected as the date from which this joint story pursued. The causes, they were examined, but as I said myself in my presentation, it's the way they interpreted that might be problematic. Sometimes the facts are open to dispute, but there's all the issue of interpretation. So that is the work that we were trying to accomplish, that we were trying to reconcile the diverging interpretations. An example is on the issue of 1948 Palestinian refugees, which is still a very topical issue, unfortunately. And we had not been able to agree on that in the group. So let me not lie to you, but we were able to come up with a modus vivendi. We agreed to work on the basis of photographic archives on that period. We also asked students, Israeli students, Palestinian students, to view these pictures from the archives and comment them, first of all, with the caption, and then without the caption, rather, and then with the captions. The results were hardly surprising, but let me quickly mention the fact that, grosso modo, the Israeli students saw that some of the issues were rather imprecise in the sense that there was a distortion between history and the current realities. For them, the photographs of the refugees were the same as, okay, it was either them or it was us. Or they were the ones who threw themselves forward. The Palestinian interpretations were totally different. It was, we suffer, and this is a still present reality. We were expelled. So you see the gap that exists in the interpretations of youth who are 18 years old, youth who live just a few kilometers away from each other. This is why I thought it was important earlier to mention the fact that there's Jerusalem the day after. And I think, yes, peace is not enough in of itself. There has to be reconciliation. I shan't be able to repeat that often enough. There was one, sorry, sir, just a minute, Mr. Chair. There was another question. Okay, no. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Caesar. Sebastian?
Very briefly, it was a comment that was made that Israeli society no longer wants compromise. I would claim that the result of a failed peace process, which is what we've had over the last 20 plus years, is that both sides have lost confidence that peace is not possible. We have similar majorities on both the Israeli side and the Palestinian side of people who want peace. I think everyone wants peace, who are willing to make peace based on assumed compromises. I think we have a clear majority, but we have a larger majority on both sides of people who think it's no longer possible. And this is what's the sad and tragic reality that we face. 80 to 90% of Israelis and Palestinians don't believe that they